Hello there, welcome to saberduelgaming, where we always take the high ground. Now, ever since its release in 1996, the Nintendo 64 has been synonymous with Mario games, and precisely one Mario game overall, Super Mario 64. And it's understandable, that game was groundbreaking, and let's be honest, in many ways, the Nintendo 64 as a console owes a lot of its popularity to this one game. But Mario actually went on to feature in 12 games across that console, and today we're going to take a look at another one with our retro review of Mario Tennis. 4 years into the console's lifespan, in 2000, when Mario Tennis was released, the console was pretty much in its prime. By this point, creators had got to grips with how best to make games for this console, and Mario Tennis was a perfect example. Now, Mario wasn't a stranger to tennis. Mario had featured, even just as an umpire, on tennis games on the NES and Game Boy, but this was the first time it was a true Mario game, in the same style to Mario Kart, for example. Whilst this was inevitably boost the sales, it would also boost the risk. If they didn't get the tennis mechanics just right, or if there just wasn't enough people interested in tennis to buy the game at big numbers, Mario would become associated with that failure, and that's not something Nintendo like. Fortunately, they managed to keep the controls really simple and really fun to play. You had 1-player and 2-player modes, and yes, you did have different courts that affected the gameplay somewhat, but you didn't have to be a tennis expert to know what you were doing. In fact, it was pretty casual to say the least. Whether you wanted to play a tournament mode, or individual exhibitions, or different bonus style games. Hell, it even had something of a story that included Wario and Waluigi running off with the trophy, so there was plenty to keep fans of Mario games entertained, even if you weren't massively into tennis. And for Mario fanatics, there's a fair bit of history tied into this game. Yet again, Mario is seen as the umpire, but interestingly enough, when he's in the game, there's a blue-shirted version of Mario, similar to the version that was in those older games. It's a little bit strange, but it's certainly an additional piece of history, but not quite as much as this next piece. You see, this is the first game ever to feature Waluigi, someone who's become a mainstay in Mario games ever since. This, I believe, was mainly to make sure that Wario had a partner when playing pairs. They'd even brought back Daisy, who hadn't been seen since Super Mario Land apart from a random golf game, to make sure that Luigi had a partner when Mario was teaming up with Peach. At one point, Miyamoto was asked if they were going to put the girlfriends for Wario and Waluigi into the game, but he made it clear that he didn't even want to see what they would look like. So then, how was this Mario-inspired tennis game received when it was released? Well, no shocker, it was another win for Mario and Nintendo. The game received universal acclaim, especially around the game mechanics and controls, and especially the physics of the game. It received the 4th annual Interactive Achievement Award for Family Game and garnered scores between 82 and 92%. They even got a random 10 out of 10 thrown in there into the mix. And despite the niche audience of a tennis game, the Mario market lapped it up. It sold over 200,000 copies within 2 weeks of its release, and it would have got the Nintendo 64 Game of the Year award for GameSpot if it wasn't for a little game called Perfect Dark. But when we throw a little bit of modern scrutiny out there, how does this game stand up now? Well, I have a soft spot for Nintendo 64 games. It's probably my prime console. However, it also came at a time when I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't buy many games, and a tennis game certainly wasn't going to be on that list. So reviewing this game, this was the first time I've ever played it, and I'm not a tennis fan. But then, I'm not a big fan of racing games either. Mario Kart managed to win me over there, so does Mario and his Nintendo group do it again? Absolutely they do. In fact, in this game, they probably do a better job of it. Whilst I don't think this is a better game than Mario Kart 64, it certainly takes something I have substantially less interest in and makes it a great deal of fun. And whilst there's a lot less to fit on the screen than there is in a Mario Kart game with all those different tracks, they certainly do a lot with all that extra power. You can see that this is further along in the Nintendo 64's lifespan because you can see the amount of detail that goes into these characters. This is probably the best any of the Mario themed characters have ever looked on the Nintendo 64, and in some ways they look more beautiful here than they have done on a lot of consoles since. There's depth to the controls if you want to put in the time, but it can be easy to pick up and play as well. And while the soundtrack is nowhere near as catchy as Mario Kart and some of the other Mario games, it's still pretty good. So everything is just about as good as you could want a tennis game to be, especially if you don't like tennis. Overall, Nintendo does it again. A game that takes something you may or may not have an interest in, but Mario-fies it so that it's so much fun and easily deserves a score of 8 out of 10. What do you think? If you've played this and have different thoughts, comment below, let me know. And until next time, take the high ground.